in a moment, but let's begin by saying that we're meeting in Melbourne on the land of the Kulin Nations, and we pay respect to our elders past and present. We have a very special guest with us today, so I'll let you introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, what you do, and then we'll get into a bit of a conversation.
Thanks, Alex, for having me here tonight. My name is Aisha Nancy Novakovich. I'm actually visiting from Perth and I'm here in Melbourne for a week. And I'm originally from Indonesia, where I was born. I grew up in Kupapiti, in a place famous for opal mining, and then I lived in Adelaide. And I then lived most of my life to this day in Perth.
And you have a very interesting origin story, your background, your parents. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Thank you. Well, my father was Greek Orthodox, hence the name Novakovich. And he met and married my mum, who is an Indonesian Muslim. And he passed away quite young, and I was 4 years old, the eldest of 4 daughters. And then we were raised as Muslims. Not all of us ended up becoming practicing Muslims, but I am very grateful to have Islam in my life, and I've raised my kids with Islam, and I'm very heavily involved in the interfaith community and
We'll
just
get to that
working
in a minute.
in the community spaces in Perth.
So let's begin firstly by maybe telling us a little why you chose to be Muslim as opposed to some of the other members of your family who said didn't take that on in the same practice.
Yeah, so it's interesting because they all identify as Muslim, but to different levels, and I suppose I'm the only one that has chosen to wear the hijab or the head covering, along with my mother, who initially, as lots of Indonesians really weren't 20 years ago, very practicing. But I chose to become a practicing Muslim since the age of 12, when I had an existential crisis and I was looking for the truth. And I wanted to explore all religions because I was interested in every faith, and I read all the books, and I read the Bible, the Torah, the Hindu scripts and so on. I went on my own spiritual journey at that young age, and I came out really believing that Islam was the religion for me, and the core belief in the submission of your will to the higher will of the Creator.
Excellent. That's music to the ears of any religious person listening. So that's beautiful to hear. Thank you very much. I really only have 2 more questions. We'd like to keep these pretty short. So the first one is, tell us about your innovative business and what you do, because I think that's really interesting to talk about. And the second thing will be about interfaith and why that's important to you.
Well, thanks, Alex. So really briefly, I have 2 businesses. So I come from the legal profession. I'm trained as a lawyer, but in 2018, I decided to establish a company called Modest Fashion Australia in response to this global interest and demand for more modest fashion. In actual fact, a lot of my customers and interested stakeholders are Christian and Jewish and non-Muslim.
That's probably
women.
The case, yes.
Yeah, absolutely, because modesty is a global universal value, which resonates, and women who choose to cover up and dress more modestly, including their men and children as well, we have very specific challenges living in, say, Western countries. And my company is all about providing those solutions, okay? So that's the first company. The second one, very briefly, is that I do run a consultancy which involves doing lots of interesting events and just participating and running programs that really promote multiculturalism, diversity. Like, for example, right now I'm running a program I invented for the Perth Festival called the Cultural Ambassadors Program, and also last year I continued with the Aboriginal Muslim Ramadan Iftar event, which was open to the community. So
Lovely.
I love doing those kinds of initiatives as well.
Which is an excellent segue to the last point, is tell us why you think interfaith dialogue is important, as I'm sure you include not just Muslims but others, everyone across the spectrum. So tell us why you do that and why that's important to you, and we'll finish on that.
Because firstly, we live in a very multicultural country with many faiths, and we live in a very globalized world. I come from a place in Indonesia where our national ideology is called Pancasila, and that recognizes that there are many faiths in Indonesia, and they do it very organically, this whole idea of social cohesion, unity and tolerance. And I believe that in a country like Australia, which is relatively new, we don't do it as naturally and organically, or with white colonisation and settlement, of course. We have a long history with Indonesians coming to Australia prior to white settlement. But in terms of a modern day nation, with having lots of migrants living in this country and finding themselves in a melting pot, it doesn't always, you can't just assume it will naturally gel. So when you have activists on the ground who are doing interfaith work, multiculturalism at the grassroots, that's the idea that we want to facilitate the bridge building and the friendship building at the grassroots, because we are not always waiting for government to create the right policies and frameworks to filter down. And I really truly believe in that human to human connection.
Absolutely, and I think anyone listening to this from CCJ's audience or anyone else involved in interfaith, what you just said would resonate greatly with them. So thank you very much for being a guest on this podcast.
My great pleasure.
Podcast After the Drum. We're very privileged to have you with us, and thank you very much, and safe travels back to Perth.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.